Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's talk with the Deschutes Public Library and on the terrific giant spiked tooth salmon with Gregory Carr of the North American Research Group. My name is Laurel. I'm one of the event coordinators for the library. Every month we do a variety of programs and events based on a theme, and January's theme is tea, like the kind you drink. When I was brainstorming about tea, I started looking up what fossils we might have in Oregon in the hopes that maybe we had like a T-Rex or something. And Greg quickly corrected me that we do not have that. But we did have this giant salmon. And so I worked the spiked tooth salmon into our theme by sheer will, which is why it's terrific. If you have any questions tonight, please enter them in the Q&A or the chat, and I will ask them of Greg at the end of the presentation, but you're welcome to enter them as you think of them. Greg Carr is the current secretary of the and soon to be president of the North American Research Group, which is a Portland-based club of fossil enthusiasts. He has a long history of collecting and preparing fossils, especially from Oregon. His family has discovered several new species of plants and animals, including the oldest known vertebrate from Oregon, a Triassic marine reptile known as Thalattosaur. Did I say that right, Greg? Okay. He's also found and prepared the majority of the specimens of the giant salmon, and he's a frequent public speaker about fossils and paleoclimatology. He also volunteers at OMSI in their paleontology lab. Thank you so much, Greg, for taking the time to talk with us about our local fossil.
Well, thank you for inviting me. So, like Laura mentioned, I'm Greg Carr. Feel free to interrupt me if you can. I do tend to ramble on. I'm a retired engineer and I do fossil collecting preparation and talking about them as a hobby. Um, so today we're going to be talking about giant dead salmon. I have here a 3D print of this is a life-size copy of one of the skulls. This is actually the best specimen. And I'll explain how we got it. But here is the skull of the animal. I guess I should turn off background blur, but that's how big it is. The head is much bigger than my head. These salmon were quite large. And anyway, the story, what's neat about it, the best specimens in the world come from a little gravel quarry over just north of Madras in Central Oregon. Let me go ahead and share the presentation. Let's see, there we go. That should be it. So I'm assuming that you can see this picture of a couple of fishermen holding a giant salmon, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I can tell by looking at this picture that this is not a real picture of the salmon, Oncorhynchus rastrosus. Not only is the fact that they're extinct and have been extinct for millions of years, but this salmon is just too small. These salmon were actually somewhere between 6 and 10 feet long, and they lived all through the West Coast. They did have teeth, but the teeth are not quite so big. There's the teeth right there. That's my hand. This is a tooth, and that's a tooth. You're looking at the top of the skull. So they did have two big teeth, but they weren't as sharp as the one in the picture. So I know this is fake. These aren't big enough. There we go. So these salmon, Oncorhynchus rastrosus, lived starting about, as far as we can tell, about 12 million years ago. We don't know exactly when they became extinct. We do have some restrictions on it. They could have been as late as maybe 2 million years ago that they became extinct, but they have been No human has ever seen them live because they died off too long ago. We found them in river deposits along the west coast of the United States. We suspect that they probably would have been throughout most of the west coast, including Canada and Alaska, but we have no specimens from there. It's really hard to get a salmon specimen, a salmon fossil, because everything likes to eat them. And if you get it, you don't become a fossil. Originally, they've been estimated to be as large as 8 to 10 feet long and 300 to 500 pounds based on the size of their backbones. An interesting thing about them is they were filter feeders. They did not eat other fish. Uh, well, when we get out of the presentation, I can show you, but this is the mouth, and there are no teeth in the mouth, no eating teeth. They ate plankton, zooplankton, a little tiny shrimp-like animals that eat the primary plankton, and they would filter them out in their gills and eat and backflush them and swallow them out of their gills. They had enormous gill rakers and enormous gill plates. There are a couple of other filter feeding salmon, smaller, from this same period in time, back in the Miocene. Uh, Oncorhynchus salix, Oncorhynchus capitosus. They are related to modern sockeye and chum, and they've mostly been found in the Snake River plain. We don't have any modern descendant of the giant spike-tooth salmon. The reason that they were alive, or that these animals evolved during this period of time, is there was a period of very increased productivity, what they call productivity. There's a lot more plankton in the ocean at that point in time. It's called the late Miocene biogenic bloom. And something happened as the Earth's climate was gradually cooling down from the early Eocene, late Paleocene. It was the warmest, and was cooling down gradually till we entered the ice ages. And somewhere in there, there was a change in the ocean currents, and they started bringing up more nutrients and stuff, and became a lot more productive. And where there's food, animals would eat it, and they will evolve to take advantage of that food. And conversely, when that food goes away, they go away as well. Um, so we have a little bit of information about the LMBB. Let me, uh, there you go. I don't know if can you see that pointer there? The laser pointer. So this is just an excerpt out of an article about looking at the LMBB around the world. And this bottom chart's the clearest one I can find. And it shows the amount of stuff being deposited. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. At the bottom of the ocean, it tells us that there's a lot more plankton, particularly diatoms and things. The yellow line here at the bottom is the Atlantic. The greenish one, bluish one here is the Pacific. So the Pacific was a little later in getting more productive. It wasn't uniform around the world. And so the Pacific was later becoming productive and later falling off. The Atlantic stopped being productive about 3 million years ago. I'm sorry about that. I will have, and the Pacific became less productive about 2 million years ago. So that's probably what caused them to die out, is they ran out of food. So this is probably when they became extinct. We don't know the exact date of the deposit that we're digging in Madras. We're hoping to get that as part of this study. So here's what it looks like. Uh, this map shows where these salmon have been found here in uh, western coast of the U.S. The main stem of the Columbia, we're over here where the Columbia meets the Deschutes. The big quarry right here in Central Oregon, just north of Madras, where we dig them up. The Klamath River, the Tuolumne River, and in estuaries down in California. So it was all through the West Coast. Probably they went up the Fraser River and the other rivers in Alaska. We just don't have any fossils from there. This is a picture of what it looks like. The quarry is owned by the Vibbert family. They're a long-established family in the Madras, Oregon area. When they stopped publishing the phone book in Madras, they had over 100 Vibbert families listed in it. They are on their seventh generation, so they are a long time resident of Central Oregon. And Sean Vibbert now has ownership of this quarry. So this was a quarry that was dug up in the 50s to provide gravel for the local farms and a little bit of the state road, the Gateway grade that goes from Gateway up to the top of Agency Plains. And they just bulldozed out a section. There's some of this gravel was showing on the side of the hill. They just bulldozed it out. After they bulldozed it out, the Vibbert kids were playing in it and they started finding these large fish bones. They eventually got a hold of University of Oregon. The first mostly complete skull was excavated in the late 60s, and they wrote the classification paper, and it was published in 1972. So this is what it looks like. You've got the flat bottom of the quarry where you can drive in. That's at the bottom of the gravel. There's no gravel down there. This is about a 60 to 100-foot cliff of gravel, and the fish bones are embedded in the cliff. Oops, wrong way. There we go. So what does it look like? So this is staring up at the cliff. You can see how there's patterns, there's layers of gravel, there's sand here and there. This is the remains of a braided river system. This is a picture of a braided river this one's from New Zealand. And the bottom of what a braided river occurs when rocks are washing into a river faster than they're washing out of the river. The bottom of the river fills up with with rocks, and it becomes very flat, and the river itself splits and recombines. It's very flat, and these little channels move from side to side frequently in periods of hours or days. The river kind of wanders back and forth. And at this point in time, this part of the Deschutes River was a braided river section due to lots of volcanic rocks washing in from upstream. That's important because that helps explain why we have all of these skeletons embedded in the gravel. So I've been going to the quarry a couple times a year since about 2011, looking for fossils. I have permission. I know Sean and his father, who owned it when I started out, and so I go there frequently, look for specimens. And in 2022, I found a whole bunch of them. The surface of the gravel had worn back to the point, and a whole bunch of them appeared. And most of them, right around here at least, are all from associated with the same layer of sand. There's a sand layer there. They was probably all from the same spawning event. So this is an adult spawning location for these giant salmon. They'd swim up, they'd fight with each other for the mates. They would dig the nests, the reds, to lay their eggs in. They would spawn and then they would die, just like modern salmon, kind of once and done. Uh, and all of these are, there was at least 7 specimens scattered right just through this 20-foot section of sand. Really amazing. Only partials. None of them's ever been complete, but we've got some pretty, we got some, 75% complete ones now. So here's the NARD group. We are here excavating the specimens back. They were all, we can only identify them when they're showing somewhere. So we're digging them out. We recovered a whole bunch of them in 2022. We didn't quite get them all. We actually left some and came back in 2023 and did some more excavations. Here's kind of what they might have looked like. Here's some pictures based on a paleo artist named Ray Troll, Troll Art. He has been fascinated with these animals for many, many years. This one is one of his famous paintings called Everything Saber-Tooth. You got saber-tooth cats, you got saber-tooth salmon. We've got there's somewhere here, there's a saber-tooth sardine. There is an animal called that. And there's a few other different kinds of saber-tooth animals scattered around here. But originally, when they found these animals, or they found the first specimen, we only had one specimen for 40 years, the one that they dug up in the late 60s. And these balls of teeth, I'll look back here again, these teeth have a great big ball of bone right here, and they break off. They're not well fastened to the skull. And so these teeth had broken off, and when they reconstructed it for the paper, they drew it with the teeth pointing down, and it got its nickname, the saber-tooth salmon. In 2014, we dug up 2 skulls that my daughter and I found in 2011. We could get part of the backbones out, but we couldn't get the skulls out. By we, I mean me, my daughter, and the University of Oregon crew. And we went back in 2014 when the cliff had eroded away a bit more and we could get the skulls out. And we had 2 skulls joined side to side. When I started prepping them, lo and behold, the teeth are in place and they don't point down, they point sideways. So the history is first one was found, dug up in the late 60s or mid 60s, published paper in 72 by Cavendish and Miller at the University of Oregon. A very fine specimen was collected in 1980 by a guy named Reuben Holman. That's this big specimen is Reuben's specimen. He dug it up and kept it. And the interesting thing about specimens for paleontology nerds is if you've got a specimen, no paleontologist is going to write about it unless it's in a publicly available collection, i.e., it belongs to a museum or a university. So Reuben couldn't get a paleontologist to write anything formal about his specimen. Now, he kept it, and in 2018, he's getting old and getting rid of his collection. 2018, he sold it off on an eBay auction. Put it up on an eBay auction, and somebody in our club, the North America Research Group, saw it, got a hold of me, and we bought it. We bought it for the University of Oregon, donated it to the University of Oregon, and it is on display at OMSI because I had it shipped to me. I prepped it, cleaned it up, made some cradles for it down at OMSI, and we just left it there. And it's on indefinite loan from the University of Oregon to OMSI, where 100,000 people a year see it. So if you go to the Paleo Labs at OMSI, you can see Rubens' specimen. And it's not just the skull. He's got 6 foot of backbone that's kind of wrapped back and forth, and lots of fins and lots of ribs, and it's a beautiful specimen. In 2011, my daughter, in 2010, Tim Fisher from the NAR group found some articulated backbones in the quarry. In 2011, we dug them up, 2 backbones side by side. My dad, we had fun with that. We actually had a salmon barbecue while we were doing it. In 2014, the uh, cliff had weathered back far enough that we could safely excavate the skulls. And I mentioned them that they're the ones that had the teeth in place where we identified that the teeth point sideways rather than down. 2022, we found 7 more and dug them up. 2023, we found some more. In 2025, last year, we dug up 1 and there's 2 more sitting there. So we've got at least 18 specimens, 14 skulls. So it took 40 years when we only had 1, and now in the last 5 years, well, at least, well, from Rubens' specimen 2018, we've gotten another 13 of them. I mentioned this about Rubens' specimen. I won't go into detail here. If you want to see the original, it's up at OMSI. So I mentioned the teeth were not the way we thought. So now the teeth aren't pointing down, and they point sideways. What does that mean for how the fish used their teeth? It was really cool when Pat discovered this, that Pat Ward, he's a preparer at the University of Oregon. He started to take the sand and gravel off the fish, and within a half an hour, he realized that the teeth were not what he thought. The teeth are found in all the specimens, so it's both the males and the females have the big teeth. It's not a sex thing. Also, most of the specimens from 2022, we recovered six skulls that year. The teeth are broken. Whatever they're using these teeth for, they're putting a lot of stress on them because they are actually physically broken. And it wasn't when they were buried because the break edges are sharp. It was actually in life, they broke their teeth. So what I suspect is going on is, one, they're fighting with each other for dominance and for the good nests. And two, but that won't break the teeth because, they just moving their head sideways, bashing into other salmon. Well, that's not going to break the teeth. But when they're moving the rocks, they can break the teeth. They wear them off and break them. Because some of the rocks in that gravel are as big as your head. Most of them are about the size of your fist. So they're going to have to put a lot of force on prying the rocks out to generate the nice sand areas. And I don't know how big their nest would have been, but a 6 or 7 foot long salmon is going to have a lot of eggs and is going to require a big nest. Now, we do know that the teeth from the fish found in the estuaries in California are sharper and smaller than the ones that we find up in the spawning grounds. So these teeth are a dynamic structure and they grow in size. And when the animal is acclimating to fresh water to go up to spawn, rather like Chinooks develop a big kype and their jaw structure changes rather substantially. These teeth grew when these animals were getting ready to go up and spawn. So these teeth were used for the spawning activities. So fighting and digging nests. One of the consequences of us finding this out, the University of Oregon has this great life-size sculpture of a fish. I'm not sure they were actually that fat, but who knows? Uh, this is down hanging in the little Museum of Cultural and Natural History on the campus there at the University of Oregon in Eugene. And when they made it, Gary Staub, the sculptor, was taking his his ideas from the original paper, and it had the teeth pointing straight down. Well, we found out that was wrong. So they asked Gary to come back. They took the thing down, and Gary cut the teeth off and remounted them so they point out sideways. And the University of Oregon has had several things that they've published about the teeth and stuff. I've got some links here. And if you capture this, hopefully that will take you right to some of these websites for them, or you can just Google them. So they actually took the sculpture down and revised the teeth to point sideways. A lot of the old pictures, particularly from Ray, if the teeth are pointing down, that means that was painted or illustrated before 2014. If the teeth are pointing sideways, that means it was painted or illustrated after 2015 or later, when the knowledge that these teeth point sideways became public. After we've done well, let me see, back up. One of the major changes in paleontology in the last couple of decades has been 3D imaging, image manipulation, printing, file sharing, things like that. It's revolutionizing this oldest of sciences. The 1980 Holman skull was scanned here locally at OHSU. So we could get a CT scan of the inside of the skull and the inside of the backbones. We also scanned the outside. This is the paleo lab there at OMSI, and we're scanning the outside with a laser scanner. Then after you have captured the image, the shape of the object, you can print them out. Here's printing out some backbones from these animals. And in fact, this specimen, this is a 3D print, of course. What do they look like? Okay, so here's some pictures of the side of the quarry before we dug them out in 2022. Can you see the bones? I bet you can't. They're very hard to see. So there's one set. This is actually a part section through a skull. There's little tiny dark things here. These are all bones. These are broken bones. And of course, here's the river, here's the cobbles, and here's the sand. Where's the other one? Oh, there's the other one. That's a backbone sticking there. They're very hard to see. You've got to basically get within a foot or two of, and you have to spend a lot of time looking at it. That's one reason they haven't been found very much. Other things that's interesting about this. So we've got these animals. They spawned, they died, they drifted downstream a little bit, got caught in brush. Typically, there's associated with holes where there was brush and twigs and branches and stuff, just like modern salmon. And then then the river shifted because it's a braided river. It shifted its course very quickly, within hours, certainly within a couple of days, before the bears could come up and eat it, and the wolves and everything else, and covered them over with gravel. That's why they were preserved in this unusual location. We also get not only bones, but we also get soft tissue images, molds and casts. So as the flesh decayed away, it's covered with sand and gravel. A lot of that sand's pretty fresh volcanic ash, and it tends to set up like concrete rather quickly. So the gravel and sand set up around the bodies, and then the soft tissue would decay away inside the gravel, leaving gaps. Being fresh volcanic ash, it very quickly breaks down and makes mud. The mud filled in the cracks. And what you're seeing here and here for these a pelvic fin, half a back, half a tail, the other half tails here. Here's the whole tail of a different animal. These are all mud casts. They are not bones. So if you're very carefully preparing these, and you don't just scrape away all the mud to expose the bones, we can actually get soft tissue preservation. I have one specimen that we recovered in 2022. Uh, yay so long. I can't really show you on the screen because my hands are too far apart. Uh, Pulling the gravel off, and all of a sudden, all the gravel peels off, leaving the perfect clay impression of the side of the salmon. It's like the salmon body is sitting there. It's just amazing. So,
Greg, we have
yeah,
two questions that have popped up.
okay.
One is often larger species of familiar fish are bonier than their smaller counterparts. Did these salmon have larger bones or more bones? Like, how does their skeletal structure compare to the salmon we are familiar with?
Yeah, I'm not the right person to talk with that. The researcher who was out this fall from Karen Clausen is writing a paper about all these new specimens. I can tell you that, of course, the bones are bigger just because the animals are bigger, but I think proportionally they're not any bigger. It's uh, here's a real specimen, and I can probably throw that up. Uh, this is some of the fins from a one of the salmon, and that fin is just I'm guessing it here. I can see it. It's about a 64th of an inch thick, so it's very thin. Because fins are thin. I don't think the bones were proportionally much bigger than modern salmon. And I don't know if they have any extra bones that modern salmon don't have. There was another question you said?
Yes, it was. Sorry, gotta find it. Could there have been some fish with teeth pointing sideways and others with downward sabered teeth? Or is
All the
it?
ones that we have found, all 16 skulls we found, have the teeth pointing sideways. All the ones that are in place. Now we have found typically when you find these away from the Madras site, the teeth and the balls of the teeth break off. And so you have no clue what the orientation is. They're a very robust piece of the backbone or the skeletal. And so the teeth stay around and the backbone stay around and everything else vanishes. So here's a picture of one of these. There's the two teeth in place. And you can see there's actually a big groove around here. That's a very weak joint between the teeth and the skull. So here's a bigger chunk. This is one that we identified in 2022, but dug up in 2023, and it has a whole tangle. We knew we had two fish skulls here because we had traced the backbones in from the surface of the rock over into here in 2022, dug up the backbones, and then stopped when we hit the skulls because we just ran out of time. We had two of them laying side by side. So far, we have found six skulls, three pairs of laying side by side. That's kind of romantic in a paleo sort of way. Uh, so when we excavated this big block, it's got two skulls. One's only a partial skull. And it's got three backbones in there from three different animals. So just like modern salmon, these bodies washed in together and they would, tend to wash together, just like modern salmon. Now this is, I'll skip this. This is a 5-minute video of me preparing bones. If we want me to go back later, we can show it again. But that's 300 hours of work to prepare that block. Here's a beautiful bone. This is out of a different place in the quarry. This is just one bone out of the skull, one of the gill plates. Full three-dimensional. Has the most exquisite uh, preservation. I'm just so blown away at this one. It's so thin you can hold it up to a light and the light shines through the bone. Uh, so I've talked through all this. This is just, what have we found? Lots of pieces. No real complete bones, or complete skeletons, but we have some skeletons that are mostly complete. And that's some of the new information we have about them. Lots of fins, lots of backbones, lots of skulls, uh, and all sorts of done stuff. So some lessons we can learn from these. Climate change, gradual change in temperature in the climate can lead to changes in the ocean circulation, and that can have profound effects on the stuff living in the ocean because it increases and decreases the amount of food available and the types of food available. Given enough time, this can make or kill off new species. We often find things in science, new data, we have to change our ideas, our hypotheses to match the data. I like digging up old dead things. They're lots of fun. And fish, lots of fish. Life Finds a Way from Jurassic Park. I've got a couple references here. Update. Okay, so we had a visiting professor at the University of Oregon. She's from the Philadelphia School of Osteopathic Medicine. She took a fall sabbatical. She's a fish paleontologist. She took her a fall sabbatical and went to the University of Oregon and studied all of these new specimens that we have. I took her to the quarry. We spent a few days there, dug up some parts of another skull, and she got a very good basis of where we find it. She's also come up to OMSI to see the Reuben Holman specimen there at OMSI. So three things that we have found in 2025 that I can talk about. Some things I can't talk about yet. One, there is a distinct sexual dimorphism. Dimorphism meaning two shapes. There is a dimorphism in the skull. And that means that we can now distinguish between the skulls from the females and the skulls from the males. Isn't anything else that we can find, and it has to do, so if this is a skull and we're looking at the two big teeth here, remember all the skulls have the teeth. This angle right here is different between males and females. So we can actually tell which skulls are from the female salmon and which are from the male salmon. I don't know at this point if the females are bigger or the males are bigger. She hasn't told me that yet. Two, the specimens from Madras are a little smaller than the original estimated size. I believe they estimated the size from backbones that were found in the California estuaries. However, and they estimate them to be 8 to 10 feet long, 300 to 500 pounds. Most of the ones we're finding in Madras, and these are adult, spawned out adults, so we know they're fully grown, they are between 4 and 6 feet long, maybe 6.5 feet long. So they're a little smaller than the original estimate. And that number of reasons, it Could be that's just a characteristic of the run. Salmon vary a lot from run to run. Run being those animals that spawn in a certain watershed or a certain river. So from run to run, they vary in size somewhat. It may be just a characteristic of the uh, run that came up the Deschutes River. On the other hand, it could be characteristic of a different thing. I showed that uh, chart about the late Miocene biological bloom. And if these animals are living at the end of the bloom, that means that the amount of plankton in the ocean is going down over hundreds of thousands of years. And as food sources go down, animals get dwarfed to follow it. So what we may have here is a state of a dwarf giant salmon. Kind of hard to think of a salmon 6.5 feet long as being a dwarf, but it's not 10 feet long. So we're getting an accurate age of this deposit at the gravel pits in Madras will help answer that question. And we have not done that yet. We're trying to dig up the money, I guess. I'm not in charge of that. To do a proper geological dating study. Here for last, this is some of the specimens, not all of them. This is some of the specimens laid out last fall at the University of Oregon. And in particular, this is that cluster that's got two skulls and three backbones. Well, this backbone we dug up in 2022, and it hooks onto right here and continues on to this skull. This backbone we dug up in 2022, and it hooks right here and goes to this skull. And so you add this up, these got 40 something. This has, I think, 25 backbones, and this one has close to 40 backbones. And these animals had about 50 backbones altogether. So this is most of one salmon, and that salmon ends up being about 5 feet long. And this one is about half the skeleton, and that animal ends up being about 6.5 feet long. So now that's how come we're able to estimate the size. This is a skull here. This is a skull here. There's a skull here. You can see that's the lower jaw and the upper jaw. This is a skull here, but there's no jaw on it. It's all eaten off. There's a tail here. Here's a section of backbone. It's just marvelous. We have so many specimens now to study and to look at. So that's pretty much my talk. I'll stop sharing this, and then hopefully I can read those questions you guys have been coming up with.
Yeah, please enter your questions in the chat, but I came up with a few
Okay,
myself.
let me find the chat. There it is. Okay.
I don't see any so far. They might just be.
All I say is terrific.
Well,
So,
is there any hypothesis about what was eating them?
no, we haven't gotten really that far, but you can imagine taking an analogy from modern salmon. We know whether there's bears there,
Mhm.
especially if they were only living 2 or 3 million years ago, with long-faced or the short-faced bear, which is the biggest bear ever known. They are bigger than current polar bears. They lived in Oregon at that time. You know that the normal predators, raccoons, otters, wolves, other bears, they're all going to be trying to get these bodies because these animals, they ate plankton. They ate the zooplankton. The zooplankton is where all of the color of a salmon comes from, the orange color that makes their flesh, that all comes from their food. And all of the fat comes from zooplankton. So they would have been very fat and very colorful and probably utterly delicious.
I see one question about how do we know they were filter fish?
Yeah, we know that. Uh, Going back to all all the specimens, there are these two big teeth on the top for fighting and stuff. There are a few vestigial teeth around the front, but they don't stick out. They wouldn't have been sticking out away from the body. And there is no teeth in the mouth. No teeth back in the rest of the upper jaw. So they could not have been eating other fish unless they just swallowed them whole, which is
Hmm.
kind of the definition of filter feeding.
Okay. Is it thought that the California and Washington specimens are also from spawning grounds?
No, the ones from California are in the estuaries for where they were waiting to go up and spawn. Uh, the what I know of the ones on the Columbia River are just some backbones, and I don't believe those were spawning grounds. I know nothing about the ones from the Klamath.
Hmm.
Uh, so the Klamath could have been spawning. I know that they would have been adults because that's the only reason they're back up in the fresh water is they're either going up or actively spawning. So those are full-grown adults, sexually mature. Um, the ones in California now, those are being in the estuaries. You can't say they were, uh, they were probably getting close to the spawning, probably pretty well fully grown, but we couldn't. Those weren't spawning grounds. The Tuolumne River appears to be a spawning area. They're found in gravel beds on a reservoir. But it's just disarticulated bones. They're just finding the teeth and the backbones.
Okay. We had a request to watch the video of you preparing the fossil,
Okay.
and I know I want
Uh,
to see that
okay, that's good.
too.
I wanted to just hold off. Oh, let me see. I gotta share that. Now, are you guys seeing this motion on this, or are you? You are.
Yeah.
Okay. So there'll be some music here starting too. You can turn it down if you don't like it.
How did you get into fossils, Greg?
Well, I joined the NARG. I grew up as a rock hound, always collecting fossils and stuff like that. So this is in the paleo lab at OMSI, and these little kids you see coming in are visitors to the paleo lab. I grew up as a rock hound, always collected rocks and fossils and agates and minerals and crystals, and really got focused in on fossils about 20 years ago when I joined the NAR group. So this is what the matrix looks like. It's rocks and sand, cobbles and sand.
I'm kind of surprised that they would let like an like that a paleontologist wouldn't be doing this.
Well, actually, a lot of fossil prep tends to be done by volunteers. A lot of at a university or museums, they often don't have the money to pay people to do this. So it's done by enthusiastic volunteers like me. Some places do have preparation staff, people on staff, but not everybody.
Mm, yeah, it's meticulous work.
Need to introduce you before we go.
I know you mentioned that some of these specimens would slowly be eroded and it suddenly becomes safer to extract from the quarry?
Oh
Is
yeah,
it
because they'll
hard to
fall up.
wait?
These are soft enough; they'll fall apart when they get exposed.
Mm. Is it hard to be patient and wait for them to?
Well, you learn patience. This is the some of the specimens, some things that I've done took literally years.
You used water for a little bit, it looked like, but not.
That was some glue, actually.
Oh, someone was asking if there's any small tours that occur at any of these dig sites.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, someone asked if there were any small tours that occur at the dig sites.
No, no, it's private property. Sean doesn't want people going in there. The family is very generous. They donate all these specimens to the University of Oregon, but he doesn't want people, leaving garbage. And he does have people with trouble with people dumping stuff there.
Mm,
So no, he doesn't do any tours. We have had permission to bring in the NARD group, our fossil club, 3 times now. He
great.
he does do that, but that has to be arranged ahead of time. It has to be club members, and we have to clean up after ourselves.
Yeah. I had a couple questions about the tools that you were using. It looks like a screwdriver, shop vac. Is there a dental tool?
And yep, that's exactly what you use for this matrix. This stuff is soft enough that dental tools, X-Acto knife, uh, sometimes a screwdriver, and a shop vac. And a paintbrush. That's what it takes.
Hmm. Are you ever worried when you're shop vacuuming that you're taking pieces of bone or
Oh
something?
yeah, yeah. You got to be careful.
Mm.
I have had to take the shop vac apart to get the pieces back out.
Oh no. Oh
uh,
no.
anyway,
Great. This was so interesting. Thank you so much. I had no idea we had fossils this close in Madras.
yeah. I mean, you're in Bend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a world famous site, and it is so close.
Mm.
Might
I
be a
love
little
that.
frustrating that you can't just go up there and see it, but to be honest, it's a 60 to 100 foot cliff of gravel. It's not necessarily a safe place for the public to be.
Well, in your photos, I mean, I was getting close and I would never have known what I was looking at in the wall. So
Yeah.
you have a good eye. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I'm glad to do it. It is wonderful that we have these great specimens. Before you go, I'm going to introduce you to somebody. Come on over here, Dad. Uh, Yeah, if I can manage to squeeze over here somehow. I want to introduce you to my dad. Uh, yeah, okay. Who he's been on several of these digs with us there to the site. So my dad, a couple of weeks ago, had his 98th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, well, I didn't do it on purpose. But it's nice that we have shared shared experiences like this. He was out on the 2022 dig. It's the last dig that he went out with us out there.
So
Uh,
three generations of cars, because your daughter.
Three
Oh,
generations of cars were participating in this. Yeah.
that's great. A family affair.
Yep, very much so. In fact, when we went out there in 2011, to dig up the first set of articulated backbones, we decided to, was my daughter's idea. We had a salmon barbecue in the gravel quarry because you can drive right into it. We had a salmon barbecue to celebrate digging up the ancient salmon specimens. It was
I love
lots of
it.
fun.
Except that we didn't realize that we were uh, having the barbecue within about 150 feet of a great big deposit of them. We'd been working around the corner of the hill.
Yeah, the barbecue was actually probably about 50 feet from all those specimens we found 10 years later.
Oh my gosh. You were celebrating before you even knew that you had so
Yeah,
much more
we're,
to look
we're
forward
celebrating
to.
what we'd found, which was still cool, two specimens. And then there was, another 15 of them sitting there 50 feet from a barbecue, still buried in the cliff, so we couldn't see them.
Right. No salmon were harmed in the barbecue. So
That's right. Well, they were eaten though.
they were.
Modern salmon.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you, Dad. Everyone says happy birthday and and thank you for your contributions and generous donations to of the specimens so that we can all learn from them.
Yeah. And if you want to see the life-size reproduction, they're down there in Eugene at the on-campus museum, the Museum of Cultural and Natural History.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And OMSI has
And
the
OMSI
specimen
has
that you
another, yeah,
donated.
OMSI has the Reuben specimen, so you can go there and see that specimen, and that's the best in the world.
Wow. Amazing. Well, thank you again. Thanks, Dad, for making an appearance, and hope you all have a wonderful evening.